In the wake of France's rapid defeat in June 1940, a profound sense of despair permeated the nation. The German Wehrmacht's blitzkrieg tactics had overwhelmed French defenses, leading to an armistice that divided the country into occupied and unoccupied zones. The once vibrant streets of Paris, Lyon, and Toulouse were now shadowed by the presence of German soldiers, their insignia a constant reminder of the occupation. Amidst this turmoil, the daily lives of French citizens were irrevocably altered. Rationing became the norm, curfews were imposed, and the oppressive weight of the German regime stifled any semblance of normalcy. In this climate of fear and uncertainty, the postal workers of France, employees of the PTT, Posts, Télégraphes et Téléphones, found themselves in a peculiar position. Their roles, seemingly mundane, involved the sorting and delivery of mail, a task that was essential for maintaining communication in a fractured society. However, the postal service was also a crucial tool for the occupying forces, facilitating the flow of information between German military officials and Vichy collaborators. The postal workers, viewed by the occupiers as mere functionaries, were often dismissed as inconsequential in the grand scheme of the war. Yet, this underestimation would prove to be a critical miscalculation. In cities like Lyon, Toulouse, and Paris, a small but determined group of postal workers began to recognize the unique potential of their positions. They understood that the very system designed to serve the occupiers could be weaponized against them. These workers, often overlooked and underestimated, had access to sensitive information that flowed through the postal network, correspondence that could reveal military plans, troop movements, and logistical operations. The postal workers were acutely aware of the realities of occupation. They witnessed the tightening grip of the German regime, the increasing restrictions on daily life, and the brutal reprisals against those who dared to resist. When the occupation deepened, their resolve began to crystallize. They saw themselves not as passive participants in a defeated society but as potential agents of change. The realization that their seemingly mundane roles could be transformed into acts of defiance was a gradual awakening, spurred by the burgeoning resistance movement within France. By 1942, the French Resistance was gaining momentum. This decentralized movement, composed of diverse groups united by a common goal, sought to undermine the German occupation and restore France's sovereignty. The postal workers, inspired by the courage and determination of the resistance, began to explore ways in which they could contribute to the struggle against the occupiers. Their initial efforts were tentative, marked by cautious exchanges of information and discreet discussions among trusted colleagues. They were acutely aware of the risks involved. The German authorities were vigilant, and the consequences of being caught were severe. To navigate this treacherous landscape, the postal workers needed to establish a network of trusted individuals who could be relied upon to handle sensitive information. This required not only courage but also ingenuity and meticulous attention to detail. They began to devise strategies for intercepting and diverting German correspondence without arousing suspicion. The workers understood that the flow of information through the postal system was a vital artery for the occupiers, and disrupting this flow could have far-reaching consequences. As they prepared to take their first steps into the realm of sabotage, the postal workers knew they were embarking on a dangerous path. Yet, they also understood that their actions, however small, could have a significant impact on the war effort. The stakes were high, and the resolve of these ordinary citizens to resist oppression was beginning to take shape. The postal workers were not merely sorting letters. They were laying the groundwork for a more concerted effort to disrupt the occupiers' operations. By 1942, the landscape of occupied France was marked by a growing undercurrent of resistance. The French Resistance, a diverse and decentralized movement, was gaining strength, its members united by a common goal: to undermine the German occupation and restore France's sovereignty. Within this burgeoning movement, postal workers began to play a pivotal role, leveraging their positions to gather and disseminate crucial information. The postal workers' involvement in the resistance was not a spontaneous development. It was the result of careful planning and coordination, driven by a deep-seated desire to contribute to the liberation of their country. They recognized that the postal system was a vital artery of communication for the occupiers, and that disrupting this flow could have far-reaching consequences. The postal workers began to see their roles as integral to the larger resistance effort, understanding that they could transform their daily tasks into acts of defiance. The first step in their plan was to establish a network of trusted individuals within the postal service. This network, though small, was composed of individuals who shared a common commitment to the resistance cause. They communicated discreetly, using coded language and clandestine meetings to avoid detection. Trust was paramount, as the consequences of betrayal were dire. The workers understood that the postal system was under constant surveillance, and any deviation from the norm could lead to severe repercussions. Once the network was in place, the postal workers began to devise strategies for intercepting and diverting German correspondence. Their primary targets were military dispatches and shipment manifests, documents that could reveal valuable information about troop movements and supply routes. The workers understood that this intelligence could be used to plan more effective resistance operations, striking at the heart of the occupiers' logistical capabilities. The postal workers' plan required a high degree of precision and coordination. They needed to ensure that the intercepted correspondence was handled in such a way that it would not arouse suspicion. This meant carefully sorting through letters and packages, extracting valuable information while leaving the remaining correspondence undisturbed. It was a delicate operation, one that required both skill and nerve. As they prepared to put their plan into action, the postal workers were acutely aware of the risks involved. The German authorities were vigilant, and the postal system was subject to regular inspections. Any deviation from the norm could result in severe repercussions, not only for the individuals involved but also for their families and colleagues. Yet, the postal workers were undeterred. They understood that their actions were a vital part of the larger resistance effort, and they were willing to take the necessary risks. The seeds of resistance had been sown, and the postal workers were ready to take their first steps into the realm of sabotage. They knew that their actions, though seemingly small, could have a significant impact on the war effort. As they prepared to initiate their plan, the postal workers were driven by a sense of purpose, a belief that they could make a difference in the fight against tyranny. The daily life of the postal workers during this time was a study in contrasts. On one hand, they were engaged in the routine tasks of sorting and delivering mail, adhering to the strict schedules imposed by the occupying forces. On the other hand, they were secretly involved in a burgeoning resistance movement, their actions a testament to the resilience of ordinary citizens in the face of oppression. The duality of their existence, functionaries by day, resistance fighters by night, was emblematic of the broader struggle faced by ordinary citizens in occupied France. When the postal workers began to organize, they faced numerous challenges. They needed to establish a network of trusted individuals who could be relied upon to handle sensitive information. They also needed to develop methods for intercepting and diverting German correspondence without arousing suspicion. This required not only courage but also ingenuity and meticulous attention to detail. The postal workers were acutely aware that their actions could have dire consequences, not just for themselves but for their families and colleagues as well. Despite these challenges, the postal workers pressed on. They were driven by a sense of duty, a belief that they could make a difference in the fight against tyranny. Their actions, though initially limited in scope, laid the groundwork for a more concerted effort to disrupt the occupiers' operations. As they prepared to take their first steps into the realm of sabotage, the postal workers knew that they were embarking on a dangerous path. Yet, they also knew that their actions were a testament to the power of ordinary citizens to resist oppression. In 1943, the postal workers' plan moved from conception to execution. With their network established and their strategies in place, they initiated their first acts of sabotage against the German occupiers. The operation was fraught with danger, but the postal workers were resolute, driven by the knowledge that their actions could disrupt the occupiers' operations and aid the resistance. The initial phase of the operation involved the careful interception and diversion of mail intended for German military officials. The postal workers meticulously sorted through letters and packages, identifying those that contained valuable information. They extracted military dispatches, shipment manifests, and other documents that could provide insights into the occupiers' plans and movements. This process required a high degree of skill and attention to detail. The postal workers needed to ensure that the remaining correspondence appeared undisturbed, so as not to arouse suspicion. They developed techniques for resealing envelopes and repackaging parcels, using materials that matched the originals. It was a delicate operation, one that required both precision and nerve. When the postal workers carried out their plan, they began to see the immediate impact of their actions. Thousands of military dispatches were never delivered, creating confusion within the German command. The occupiers, accustomed to the efficient flow of information, found themselves grappling with delays and disruptions. This confusion was compounded by the fact that the postal workers were able to share the intercepted information with local resistance groups, enabling them to plan more effective operations and strikes against the occupiers. The success of these initial acts of sabotage ignited a sense of purpose among the postal workers. They were no longer mere functionaries of the regime, they were active participants in the resistance effort. Their actions demonstrated the power of ordinary citizens to disrupt the occupiers' operations, and their courage inspired others to join the fight. However, the postal workers were acutely aware of the risks involved. The German authorities were vigilant, and the postal system was subject to regular inspections. Any deviation from the norm could result in severe repercussions, not only for the individuals involved but also for their families and colleagues. Yet, the postal workers remained resolute, knowing that their actions were contributing to the larger fight for freedom. As the postal workers continued their sabotage efforts, they began to realize the profound implications of the information they were uncovering. The intercepted correspondence provided critical insights into German troop movements, supply shortages, and the activities of collaborators within France. This intelligence was shared with the resistance, enabling them to plan more effective operations and strikes against the occupiers. The realization that they could influence the war effort from within the postal system transformed the workers' perception of their roles. They understood that their actions, though seemingly small, could have a significant impact on the course of the war. This newfound sense of agency instilled a sense of pride and determination among the postal workers, who were committed to continuing their efforts despite the risks. The postal workers' actions were a testament to the power of ordinary citizens to resist oppression. Their bravery and ingenuity showcased the potential for individuals to effect change in extraordinary circumstances. As they continued their sabotage efforts, the postal workers knew that they were part of a larger movement, one that was determined to restore France's sovereignty and defeat the occupiers. In the spring of 1943, one particularly daring operation unfolded in the bustling city of Lyon. A group of postal workers, led by a figure named Pierre, devised a plan to intercept a shipment of vital military supplies destined for German troops stationed in the region. The workers knew that the shipment included ammunition and food supplies that were crucial for sustaining the German forces, and they were determined to disrupt this lifeline. Under the cover of darkness, Pierre and his team meticulously planned their operation. They identified the route that the shipment would take and coordinated with local resistance fighters to ensure that they could act swiftly once the supplies were intercepted. The workers set up a makeshift checkpoint along the route, disguised as a routine postal delivery stop. As the truck approached, the postal workers sprang into action. They flagged down the vehicle, feigning a routine inspection. The driver, caught off guard, complied, unaware that he was about to become an unwitting pawn in a larger game of sabotage. The workers quickly assessed the contents of the truck, confirming that it was indeed carrying military supplies. With a combination of quick thinking and sheer audacity, Pierre and his team managed to divert the truck into a nearby alley, where they unloaded the supplies and concealed them in a pre-arranged safe house. The driver, realizing he had been duped, attempted to flee, but the postal workers had already alerted their resistance allies, who apprehended him before he could raise the alarm. This operation sent shockwaves through the German command in Lyon. The loss of crucial supplies not only disrupted their operations but also instilled a sense of fear among the occupiers. The postal workers' audacity had demonstrated that the French resistance was capable of striking directly at the heart of the occupiers' logistical operations. As news of the successful operation spread, it inspired other postal workers across France to take similar actions. The network of resistance within the postal service expanded, with more individuals stepping forward to contribute to the cause. The postal workers began to realize that their collective efforts could create a ripple effect, galvanizing the broader population to rise against the occupiers. Yet, with success came increased scrutiny. The German authorities, alarmed by the disruptions, intensified their efforts to root out the sources of sabotage. The Gestapo launched investigations into the postal service, employing informants and conducting raids in an attempt to identify the culprits behind the growing wave of resistance. The atmosphere within the postal service became one of palpable tension and fear. Workers who had once operated in relative anonymity now found themselves under the watchful eyes of the occupiers. The risk of discovery was ever present, and the consequences of being caught were severe. Arrests and interrogations became common, with many postal workers facing imprisonment or execution if their activities were uncovered. Despite the heightened risks, the postal workers remained resolute. They understood that their actions were contributing to the larger fight for freedom, and the knowledge that they were making a difference fueled their determination to continue. The network of postal workers adapted to the increased scrutiny, employing even more sophisticated methods to evade detection. As the summer of 1943 approached, the postal workers' actions began to bear fruit. The intelligence they gathered was not only aiding the resistance but also catching the attention of Allied intelligence agencies. The information about troop movements and supply routes was deemed invaluable, leading to increased collaboration between the resistance and Allied forces. The postal workers' network became a vital conduit for information, enabling the resistance to coordinate their efforts with larger military operations. The workers understood that their actions were not just about individual acts of sabotage. They were part of a larger strategy to weaken the occupiers and pave the way for liberation. With each successful operation, the postal workers grew bolder. They began to explore new avenues for sabotage, targeting not only military supplies but also communication lines and transportation networks. The postal workers became adept at identifying vulnerabilities within the occupiers' infrastructure, using their knowledge of the postal system to exploit weaknesses. As the year progressed, the postal workers' contributions to the resistance became increasingly recognized. Their bravery and ingenuity showcased the power of ordinary citizens to effect change in extraordinary circumstances. The postal workers' actions were no longer just about disrupting German operations. They were about inspiring a nation to rise up against its oppressors. The confrontation between the postal workers and the German occupiers was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. In the face of overwhelming odds, these ordinary individuals had transformed their roles into instruments of resistance. Their actions demonstrated that even in the darkest of times, hope could flourish, and Norway's fight for freedom could prevail. As the postal workers continued their sabotage efforts, they understood that they were part of a larger movement, one that was determined to restore France's sovereignty and defeat the occupiers. Their bravery and determination would leave an indelible mark on the history of the French Resistance, inspiring future generations to stand up against tyranny. As the year 1943 unfolded, the clandestine operations of the French postal workers began to yield a bounty of intelligence that would prove invaluable to the resistance. Each intercepted letter, each diverted package, was a potential goldmine of information. The postal workers, once seen as mere custodians of correspondence, had become the gatekeepers of secrets that could alter the course of the war. In the dimly lit back rooms of post offices in Lyon, Toulouse, and Paris, these workers sifted through mountains of mail with a meticulous eye. They were not just looking for any correspondence, but were specifically targeting military dispatches, official orders, and communications between German officers. The workers had developed a keen sense for identifying the telltale signs of important documents, distinctive seals, particular types of stationery, and the unmistakable insignia of the Wehrmacht. The intercepted information was carefully documented and then passed on to resistance operatives. This intelligence provided insights into the occupiers' strategies, troop movements, supply chain vulnerabilities, and even the identities of French collaborators. The postal workers had unwittingly become the eyes and ears of the resistance, their actions providing a critical edge in the fight against the occupiers. One of the most significant pieces of intelligence uncovered was a series of communications detailing the German plans for fortifying the Atlantic Wall, Hitler's formidable coastal defense system. The postal workers' efforts enabled the resistance to pass this information to the Allies, who were preparing for the eventual invasion of Europe. This intelligence would later prove crucial in the planning stages of Operation Overlord, the D-Day landings in Normandy. The realization of their impact was transformative for the postal workers. No longer were they passive observers of the war, they were active participants, their actions directly influencing the outcome of military operations. This newfound sense of agency galvanized their efforts, driving them to take even greater risks in their sabotage activities. The postal workers' network expanded, with more individuals joining the cause. They developed sophisticated methods for intercepting and copying documents, ensuring that the original correspondence was returned to the mail stream without arousing suspicion. This required not only skill but also an extraordinary level of discretion and trust among the workers. As the postal workers continued their covert operations, they became increasingly aware of the broader implications of their actions. They understood that the information they were uncovering was not just a tactical advantage but a strategic one. It allowed the resistance to anticipate German moves, disrupt supply lines, and plan targeted attacks that would weaken the occupiers' grip on France. The power of information, once underestimated, had become a formidable weapon in the hands of the resistance. The postal workers' efforts demonstrated that intelligence was not just the domain of spies and soldiers but could be wielded by ordinary citizens with extraordinary courage. Their actions were a testament to the idea that knowledge, when used wisely, could be as potent as any weapon on the battlefield. As the summer of 1943 approached, the postal workers found themselves at the center of a web of information that connected various factions of the resistance. They began to coordinate their efforts with other resistance groups, sharing intelligence and resources to maximize their impact. The postal workers recognized that their strength lay in unity, and they worked diligently to forge alliances with other resistance fighters. One notable collaboration occurred in the fall of 1943, when the postal workers partnered with a group of resistance fighters in Paris who were planning a major sabotage operation against a German supply depot. The postal workers provided crucial intelligence about the depot's operations, including shipment schedules and security measures. Armed with this information, the resistance fighters were able to execute a daring raid that resulted in the destruction of vital supplies and equipment. The success of this operation further solidified the postal workers' reputation as key players in the resistance movement. Their ability to gather and disseminate intelligence had become a cornerstone of the Résistance's strategy, and their contributions were increasingly recognized by both their peers and Allied forces. As the postal workers continued to navigate the complexities of their dual roles as postal workers and resistance fighters, they faced mounting challenges. The German authorities, aware of the growing threat posed by the resistance, intensified their efforts to root out dissent. The postal system, once a trusted means of communication, became a battleground for espionage and sabotage. The workers were forced to adapt to the changing landscape, employing new tactics to evade detection. They developed codes and ciphers to communicate sensitive information, ensuring that even if their correspondence was intercepted, the details would remain secure. The postal workers became adept at disguising their activities, using their knowledge of the postal system to create plausible deniability. Despite the risks, the postal workers remained committed to their cause. They understood that the stakes were high, and that their actions could have far-reaching consequences. The knowledge that they were contributing to the larger fight for freedom fueled the determination to continue their efforts. As the year progressed, the postal workers' contributions to the resistance became increasingly vital. Their intelligence not only aided in the planning of sabotage operations but also provided insights into the German military's vulnerabilities. The workers began to recognize that their actions were not just about disrupting the occupiers' operations, they were about empowering their fellow citizens to rise up against tyranny. The power of information had transformed the postal workers from passive participants into active agents of change. Their actions inspired others to join the fight, fostering a spirit of resistance that permeated French society. The postal workers had become symbols of hope, demonstrating that even in the darkest of times, ordinary individuals could make a difference. As the winter of 1943 approached, the postal workers' network continued to expand. They forged connections with other resistance groups, sharing intelligence and resources to strengthen their collective efforts. The postal workers understood that unity was essential in the face of adversity, and they worked tirelessly to build a cohesive resistance movement. The culmination of their efforts came in early 1944, when the postal workers played a pivotal role in a coordinated operation involving multiple resistance factions. Armed with intelligence gathered from their extensive network, the workers helped plan a series of strikes against key German installations across France. The operation aimed to disrupt supply lines, sabotage communication networks, and weaken the occupiers' grip on the country. As the operation unfolded, the postal workers' contributions proved invaluable. Their intelligence allowed the resistance fighters to strike with precision, targeting vulnerable points in the German infrastructure. The coordinated attacks sent shockwaves through the occupiers, who were left scrambling to respond to the sudden onslaught. The success of this operation marked a turning point in the resistance movement. The postal workers had demonstrated that their actions, once dismissed as insignificant, could have a profound impact on the course of the war. Their bravery and ingenuity showcased the power of ordinary citizens to effect change, inspiring others to join Norway's fight for freedom. By the end of that year, the postal workers reflected on their journey. They had transformed from mere functionaries of the regime into key players in the resistance movement. Their actions had not only disrupted the occupiers' operations but had also empowered their fellow citizens to rise up against tyranny. The power of information, once underestimated, had become a formidable weapon in the hands of the resistance. The postal workers' legacy would endure, a testament to the courage and determination of ordinary individuals in the face of oppression. Their story would serve as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope could flourish, and Norway's fight for freedom could prevail. As the summer of 1944 approached, the postal workers' sabotage operations reached a critical turning point. The German authorities, increasingly aware of the disruptions plaguing their communication channels, intensified their crackdown on the postal service. The once quiet halls of post offices became tense battlegrounds, where the stakes were no longer just about mail delivery but about life and death. The postal workers, who had initially operated in the shadows, now found themselves at the forefront of a perilous struggle, facing the full wrath of the occupiers. The German response to the sabotage was swift and brutal. The Gestapo, notorious for their ruthless tactics, launched a series of investigations aimed at uncovering the identities of those responsible for the disruptions. They implemented stringent security measures, including increased surveillance of postal workers, routine inspections of mail, and the deployment of informants within the postal service. The atmosphere of fear was palpable, as colleagues turned against one another under the pressure of suspicion and the threat of reprisal. For the postal workers, the moral dilemmas became increasingly complex. They were no longer just risking their own lives, They were putting their families and friends in jeopardy. The fear of discovery loomed large, and the consequences of being caught were dire. Many postal workers faced the grim reality of imprisonment, torture, or execution. Yet, despite the risks, their resolve only strengthened. They understood that their actions were not merely acts of sabotage, they were essential contributions to the broader resistance movement. The postal workers adapted to the heightened scrutiny with ingenuity. They developed new methods to evade detection, including the use of coded messages and clandestine meetings in safe houses. The network expanded, with more individuals joining the cause, each bringing unique skills and resources to the effort. The workers began to employ more sophisticated techniques for intercepting and copying documents, ensuring that vital intelligence continued to flow to the resistance. One of the most significant impacts of their sabotage was the confusion it sowed within the German command. The occupiers, accustomed to a well-oiled machine of communication, found themselves grappling with delays and misinformation. Military operations were compromised, supply lines disrupted, and the overall effectiveness of the German war effort began to wane. The postal workers had unwittingly become a thorn in the side of the occupiers, their actions contributing to a growing sense of uncertainty among German forces. However, the postal workers were also acutely aware of the moral implications of their actions. They grappled with the knowledge that their sabotage could lead to reprisals against innocent civilians. The German authorities often retaliated against the local population for acts of resistance, executing hostages and conducting mass arrests. This reality weighed heavily on the postal workers, who were torn between their commitment to the resistance and the potential consequences for their fellow citizens. In one particularly harrowing instance, a group of postal workers intercepted a shipment of military supplies destined for a German garrison. The intelligence they gathered revealed that the supplies included ammunition and food for troops stationed in a nearby town. The workers faced a moral quandary. Should they sabotage the shipment, knowing that it could lead to retaliation against the local population? Ultimately, they decided to proceed, believing that the disruption would weaken the occupiers and contribute to the larger goal of liberation. The decision was not made lightly, and the weight of their choice lingered long after the operation was complete. As the summer progressed, the postal workers' actions began to resonate beyond the confines of their immediate network. The intelligence they provided to the resistance enabled coordinated attacks against German positions, disrupting supply lines and creating opportunities for uprisings in various regions. The postal workers had become integral to the resistance movement, their contributions helping to shift the tide of the war. Yet, the consequences of their actions were not without cost. The German authorities retaliated with brutal efficiency, conducting mass arrests of suspected resistance members and their families. The postal workers watched helplessly as friends and colleagues were taken away, some never to return. The fear of discovery hung over them like a dark cloud, but they remained resolute, driven by the belief that their actions were part of a larger struggle for freedom. The turning point came in late July 1944, when Allied forces launched Operation Cobra, a massive offensive aimed at breaking through German defenses in Normandy. The intelligence gathered by the postal workers played a crucial role in the success of this operation. Their insights into German troop movements and supply vulnerabilities allowed Allied commanders to plan their attacks with precision, ultimately leading to a significant breakthrough on the Western Front. As the Allied forces advanced, the postal workers found themselves at a crossroads. They had become key players in the resistance, their actions contributing to the liberation of France. Yet, the risks remained high, and the threat of German reprisals loomed large. The moral dilemmas they faced were compounded by the reality of war, where the line between right and wrong often blurred in the pursuit of freedom. In the postal workers' courage and resilience became a defining characteristic of their legacy. They had transformed from passive participants in the war into active agents of change, their actions reverberating throughout the resistance movement. Their story was a testament to the power of ordinary citizens to effect change, even in the face of overwhelming odds. In the later years of the war drew to a close, the consequences of their actions would be felt for generations to come, shaping the narrative of resistance and resilience in the face of tyranny. As the dust settled after the liberation of France in the summer of 1944, the postal workers emerged from the shadows, their contributions to the resistance finally recognized. The aftermath of the war brought with it a profound transformation, not only for the nation but also for the individuals who had risked everything in the fight against oppression. The postal workers, once seen as mere functionaries, were now celebrated as heroes, their bravery and ingenuity woven into the fabric of the national narrative. The liberation of France marked a turning point in the lives of the postal workers. Many returned to their roles within the postal service, but their experiences during the war had irrevocably changed them. They carried with them the weight of their actions, the memories of friends lost and the moral dilemmas faced in the pursuit of freedom. The camaraderie forged in the crucible of resistance became a lasting bond, as they continued to support one another in the aftermath of the war. The transformation of the postal workers was not just personal, it was also societal. Their story became emblematic of the broader struggle against tyranny, inspiring a generation to recognize the power of ordinary citizens in shaping the course of history. The narrative of the postal workers was woven into the larger tapestry of the French Resistance, a reminder that resistance could take many forms, from armed insurrection to the quiet defiance of everyday life. In the years following the war, the postal workers' contributions were commemorated in various ways. Memorials were erected in their honor, and their stories were shared in schools and communities across France. The legacy of their bravery became a source of inspiration for future generations, a testament to the idea that even the smallest acts of defiance could alter the course of history. However, the aftermath of the war also brought challenges. The postal workers, like many others, grappled with the trauma of their experiences. The memories of the fear, the losses, and the moral dilemmas lingered long after the war had ended. Many sought solace in their communities, sharing their stories and finding strength in the bonds forged during the struggle. The act of remembering became a crucial part of the healing process, as they navigated the complexities of their experiences. The postal workers' transformation also extended to their understanding of civic duty. They became advocates for social justice and community engagement, recognizing the importance of standing up against oppression in all its forms. Their experiences during the war instilled in them a sense of responsibility to ensure that the lessons of the past were not forgotten. They understood that Norway's fight for freedom was ongoing, and that vigilance was necessary to protect the rights and dignity of all citizens. As France rebuilt in the post-war years, the enduring legacy of the postal workers served as a reminder of the power of resilience and resistance. Their story became a symbol of hope, inspiring individuals to take action in the face of injustice. The postal workers had shown that ordinary citizens could rise to the occasion, their actions contributing to the larger struggle for freedom and dignity. In the broader context of post-war Europe, the enduring legacy of the postal workers resonated beyond France's borders. Their story became part of the collective memory of resistance against fascism, inspiring movements for freedom and justice in other nations. The courage of the postal workers served as a beacon of hope for those still grappling with oppression, reminding them that change was possible through collective action and solidarity. As time passed, the postal workers' contributions were increasingly recognized in historical narratives. Scholars and historians began to delve into the intricacies of the resistance, uncovering the vital role played by ordinary citizens in the fight against tyranny. The postal workers, once overlooked, became central figures in the story of France's liberation, their actions celebrated as a testament to the power of courage and determination. In the years following the war, the postal workers' legacy continued to inspire new generations. Their story was shared in classrooms, commemorated in literature, and honored in public ceremonies. The narrative of the postal workers became a powerful reminder of the importance of standing up against oppression, encouraging individuals to recognize their potential to effect change in their communities. As we reflect on the aftermath of the postal workers' actions, we are reminded of the enduring impact of their courage. Their story serves as a testament to the power of ordinary citizens to resist tyranny, their legacy a lasting tribute to the resilience of the human spirit. The postal workers had transformed from passive participants in the war into active agents of change, their actions reverberating throughout history as a reminder that hope and determination can triumph even in the darkest of times. In the aftermath of World War II, as France began the arduous journey of rebuilding, the contributions of the postal workers, those unsung heroes of the resistance, were often overshadowed by the grand narratives of military battles and political maneuvers. The focus of historical discourse gravitated towards the prominent figures of the war, the Allied generals, and the strategic decisions that shaped the outcome of the conflict. Yet, the account of the postal workers, who had quietly but resolutely fought back against the German occupiers from within their own ranks, remained a poignant reminder of the profound impact that ordinary citizens can have in times of conflict. As France emerged from the shadows of occupation, the nation grappled with the complexities of its recent past. The liberation was not merely a military victory, it was a collective awakening to the power of resistance and the moral imperative to confront tyranny. The postal workers, who had transformed their mundane roles into acts of defiance, were emblematic of this awakening. Their actions had demonstrated that courage could manifest in many forms, and that even the most unassuming individuals could play pivotal roles in Norway's fight for freedom. In the years following the war, historians and scholars began to delve deeper into the intricacies of the resistance, seeking to uncover the myriad ways in which ordinary citizens had contributed to the struggle against the occupiers. The narrative of the postal workers began to emerge from the shadows, revealing the courage, ingenuity, and resourcefulness of those who had risked everything to disrupt the machinery of oppression. Their story became a testament to the power of collective action, illustrating how individuals, when united by a common purpose, could effect significant change. The enduring legacy of the postal workers was not only one of resistance but also of resilience. As France rebuilt its infrastructure and society, the memory of those who had fought for freedom became intertwined with the national identity. The postal workers' actions were commemorated in various forms, from local memorials to national ceremonies, as the country sought to honor the sacrifices made by its citizens during the war. Their bravery was celebrated in schools, where educators emphasized the importance of civic duty and the role of ordinary people in shaping history. In 1946, a significant milestone was reached when the French government officially recognized the contributions of the resistance, including the postal workers. This recognition was not merely symbolic, it marked a turning point in how the narrative of the war was constructed. The government began to incorporate the stories of ordinary citizens into the broader historical account, highlighting the importance of grassroots resistance movements in the fight against fascism. This shift in perspective allowed for a more nuanced understanding of the war, one that acknowledged the sacrifices of those who had fought not on the front lines but within their communities. The postal workers' legacy also found expression in literature and the arts. Writers, poets, and filmmakers began to explore the themes of resistance, courage, and the moral complexities of war. The account of the postal workers became a powerful symbol of hope and resilience, inspiring a new generation of artists to reflect on the human capacity for defiance in the face of oppression. Documentaries and films depicting the resistance often included the postal workers' narrative, showcasing their ingenuity and bravery as integral to the collective effort to liberate France. As the years passed, the postal workers' contributions continued to resonate within French society. Their story became a source of inspiration for various social movements, emphasizing the importance of civic engagement and the need for individuals to stand up against injustice. The enduring legacy of the postal workers served as a reminder that Norway's fight for freedom is not solely the responsibility of those in power but is a collective endeavor that requires the participation of all citizens. In the realm of education, the account of the postal workers was integrated into school curricula, ensuring that future generations would learn about the vital role of ordinary citizens in the struggle for freedom. Students were taught about the importance of civic responsibility, the value of standing up for one's beliefs, and the impact that individuals can have in shaping the course of history. This education fostered a sense of pride in the nation's past and instilled a commitment to uphold the values of liberty and justice. The postal workers' legacy also extended beyond France's borders. As the world grappled with the aftermath of World War II, the account of the French Resistance became a source of inspiration for other nations facing oppression. The narrative of ordinary citizens rising against tyranny resonated with those in various parts of the world who sought to challenge authoritarian regimes. The postal workers' actions served as a powerful reminder that resistance can take many forms and that the courage of individuals can inspire collective movements for change. In the decades that followed, the enduring legacy of the postal workers continued to be honored through various commemorative events. Anniversaries of significant moments in the resistance were marked by ceremonies that celebrated the bravery of those who had fought for freedom. The postal workers were often recognized alongside other members of the resistance, their contributions woven into the broader tapestry of France's struggle against occupation. These commemorations served not only to honor the past, but also to inspire ongoing discussions about the importance of civic engagement and the responsibility of citizens to stand against injustice. As the 21st century approached, the enduring legacy of the postal workers remained relevant in contemporary discussions about resistance and the role of ordinary citizens in shaping society. Their story was invoked in debates about civil liberties, human rights, and the importance of standing up against oppression in all its forms. The postal workers had become symbols of hope, resilience, and the enduring power of the human spirit to resist tyranny. In recent years, efforts have been made to ensure that the contributions of the postal workers are not forgotten. Museums dedicated to the history of the resistance have included exhibits that highlight the role of postal workers in the fight against the occupiers. These exhibits serve as educational tools, allowing visitors to engage with the history of the war and to reflect on the importance of civic responsibility in the face of adversity. The enduring legacy of the postal workers is also preserved through oral histories and personal testimonies. Survivors and their descendants have shared their stories, ensuring that the sacrifices made by the postal workers are remembered and honored. These narratives provide a human dimension to the historical account, allowing future generations to connect with the past on a personal level. As we reflect on the enduring legacy of the postal workers, we are reminded of the importance of remembering the unsung heroes of history. Their courage and determination serve as an inspiration to us all, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is hope. The account of the postal workers is a testament to the power of ordinary citizens to effect change, their legacy a lasting tribute to the resilience and resistance of the human spirit. In conclusion, the postal workers of France, through their acts of sabotage and defiance, transformed their roles from mere functionaries of the occupiers into vital agents of resistance. Their story, once hidden in the shadows, has emerged as a powerful narrative of courage, resilience, and the enduring spirit of defiance against oppression. As we honor their legacy, we are reminded that Norway's fight for freedom is a collective endeavor, one that requires the participation of all citizens, and that even the smallest acts of resistance can alter the course of history.